Wildcards in the Masters 1000s, buys for the biggest players, that and much, much more on this episode of Beer Garden Tennis. Or maybe for today, Conspiracy Corner with Culphman. We hope you enjoy this one. Share the show if you do. And now, let's get cranking. So I wanted to wind up. We may as well just stay in Conspiracy Corner here. So we're well and truly in it and have been for about half an hour. So there was a recent wild card, I think at Madrid, Culphie, that you're talking about, and you shared with me that you weren't happy about it. And I want to know why.
Yeah, well, you know, the whole wild card scenario, I think it's a, you know, and we'll delve more into this on future episodes because it's a talking point not only on our show, will be Josh, but it actually is in the entire industry, tennis industry.
Yep.
And it's been going on for probably a couple of seasons now. Just the whole wild cards being given to players, and there's a lot of interest around this come Australian Open time with the Australian full-time touring players and those that are trying to, you know, to break into that top 100 or, you know, just trying to survive out there.
Yep.
And, you know, the whole question revolves around who should get a wild card, who should not get a wild card, who picks the wild cards, why are there wild cards? You know, and I'm just at the point now where it's like, you know, why are there wild cards in our sport still? You know, you've got, just quickly on this, you got, Australia, France, obviously the United Kingdom, and the US of A. Well, they have the four biggest tournaments in the world. You know what I mean? So when those events roll around, they can give wild cards to their local players, you know, which helps them obviously with ranking points and prize money, and they're able to move forward.
And to grow the sport domestically.
And to grow the sport in their own country. Okay. Is that a fair system? Probably not when you really look at it. So why is it really still this way? We're not living in the ancient times. It's not, it's not the early, the 1920s or 1930s when the sport was only played in certain countries, where Australia dominated and the US of A did as well, and France. I mean, it's changed now. It's a global game. So the whole wild card thing, but this one just jumped off the page for me in Madrid, where a young American kid, Darwin Blanch, who's 16 years of age, is barely in the top 1,000 in the world. I don't think he's even in the top 1,000 in the world. Okay, he got a main draw wild card into the Madrid 1,000. So you just shake your head and go, okay, well, is American youngster getting a wild card in Madrid, which is at a Spanish event? Like, there's no connection there. It's not like it's a young 17-year-old Spaniard by the name of Nadal or whatever who's got great pedigree up until that point, you know what I mean, as a dominant junior or anything like that at all. So it was just bizarre. Anyway, it came across my desk, a little bit of research, and basically he's signed up to IMG, the sport management company. So they're behind him, and they actually run the event. Jeez. So there's a massive agenda there, a huge conflict of interest, and they've basically awarded Blanch, who they want to be, a future top professional player, a main draw wild card at a Masters 1000 event. So it's absolutely absurd and a real bad look for the game or the sport. And others came out and spoke about it, through other former pro players. And ironically, he drew Nadal in the first round.
Yeah.
and the kid got smacked 6-1, 6-love.
Yeah, put to the sword.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Which, look, not good for the youngster, but good to see, and just shows that, Nadal, we know it's not the Nadal of old right now. He's just trying to work his way back, and he still only was able to win one game, in a probably no good for the spectators. They get to see Nadal, but it's not a competitive match. The wild card should not be given at Masters 1000 level.
So
and it's just
64 players.
Yes.
In a Masters 1000 from memory.
Yeah.
So we're talking about there's people outside the top 30 through to maybe, let's say, the top 80 that are multiple times better than what this kid is in terms of level at the moment.
Yes.
That either have to find a way into these tournaments, get invited to be there through their ranking or however it works, play a challenger, whatever else. They're getting skipped over by people that are just getting a tap on the shoulder.
Yep.
But it's not like someone that's 120 that is on a rocket ship.
Yes.
And has moved several hundred places in 12 months, maybe from 500 to 120, where they're competitive, with these people between maybe 150. It's like they were just plucked him out of the pile of, who's a super marketable player or who's whatever reason they chose this particular person out of all the options. Because there's sometimes players that are coming back that have to fight through, like Berrettini did recently, just to be able to get back into some of these tournaments.
Yep.
Like he's someone that you would just think, well, they're going to tap someone on the shoulder. Maybe the famous, super marketable 6'5" dude that's made a Wimbledon final.
Yes. Yeah.
But I'm not saying he was or wasn't actually in this tournament, but that seems pretty bad.
Yeah.
That's the worst example of this that I have personally heard about.
Yeah. Exactly right. And it's probably the worst one I've seen too in terms of the wild card argument. You look at the player straight away and you go, oh, okay, the age, 16 years of age, the world ranking outside the top 1,000 in the world. Main draw? Not even talking like a wild card in qualifying for qualies. It's like main draw straight in.
Yeah.
And as you said, you got guys there that ranked, 75, 80 in the world, just looking to get into qualifying for Madrid to get in. They can't be happy with that. You know what I mean? Like so it's just real bad look. The connection, IMG, International Management Group, they, I believe they own the event. So they own the event.
Wow.
They obviously run the event, and Darwin Blanch is an IMG client, where they're obviously giving him resources to push him forward to, the upper echelons of the sport. Mate, straight in. Nadal goes smack, 6-1, 6-love, real bad look.
Yeah.
And they're the things that, the tours, they need to sort that out. It's messy. Yeah. It's a real mess, and it shouldn't be going on. And it was a real, there's been talk the last couple of years on the whole wild card, scenarios and, who should get them, who shouldn't, should we have them? And this really, which was a good thing to happen for the sport, because it pushed the conversation to get a little bit more heavy and more serious, because it's that's a shocking shocking look.
It is, particularly at 1,000 level, because it's putting the poor decision making on display at the ultimate level other than in a slam. But you condense down the number of players, so it might be even worse at 1,000 level, because there's an even more of a chance that the person's going to end up playing a really high level player that's going to have a lot of attention on them, like a Nadal. Out of all the people, Nadal's coming back finally. Is he going to play well? He's one of the most famous athletes in the world. He's one of the most loved tennis players of all time. That's going to be extra attention, and that's who he ends. It's the perfect storm to get the conversation going.
Yeah,
but it's also really just put it out there of they've just plucked this person to give him a leg up out of all the people.
Yeah, yep.
And then put him on court with the person that has the most attention on them in the entire sport. Probably not a great idea.
No, not a great idea. Not a good look.
Sounds like it needed to happen, but whoever made that decision, there's more than one bad decision there.
Yep. And it opens up we'll talk more about it in future episodes on the wildcard situation. And, another talking point, which I think needs to be brought up, on buys in events, players having buys.
Can you explain that to me? Because I haven't seen that nomenclature as much in my whole life as I have maybe in the last 12 months. Just the word buy coming up on results. Like, how's that working? Yep.
Just a buy for a first round. So can we fill the draws? Can we fill them? Like, it comes down to that meritocracy thing where it's like, is it really equal that it doesn't matter whether you're seeded or you're not? Why are you getting a bye in the first round? Why should the guy who doesn't get a bye, he's got to win 5 matches to win the tournament, yet the very best players have only got to win 4. Well, I mean, it's ridiculous. If you're one of the best players, very best players, hey, can you win a match like everybody else has to? Yes. I mean, so it's.
We also know that, not to go on a completely different conversation, but we know that the number of players that are brilliant in tennis is massive, but the number of players that actually sell tickets in the sport is just a few. And to think that you were thinking, I'm going to have a chance at seeing at a Masters 1000 event someone really great today, potentially even two of them playing each other, or two consecutive matches where there's two top 10 players, and then to find out that they both got buyed and it's not happening.
Yeah.
Who's going to want to buy a ticket thinking that may not even get to see the person even though they're healthy and they're in the draw? It's got to be bad for ticket sales and bums in seats, surely.
Yeah. I mean, it's like any kind of, sporting event, even if you're talking in, team sporting events, like the NCAA championships, for example, just that comes off the top of my head.
So basketball.
Yeah, basketball.
College basketball.
Yeah, college basketball, for example, or, with college football, it's always head-to-head stuff. I don't think there's any buys that are going on when, the tournament starts.
No.
You know what I mean? I may have to do some research on that, but it's just like the whole buy scenario is just like, I don't understand that. Again, in a world where we've got so many players out there, so many quality players, that can play at the level, and we've only got limited spots on how many players can play in these events. Some of these draws are 32 in the draw, Masters 1000 looking at 64, you know what I mean? Yeah. So, but then you've only got, 50 players in there because all the seeds are getting buys. Like, can we put 16 more players in and fill the draw? That'd be good. That'd be a good product.
Yeah. That's what people want.
Yeah. The product. You know what I mean? And I think there's some things out there now and it's at the very, very highest level where the product is just, that wild card scenario there in Madrid is a great example. That's not a good product right there.
No. And the more we talk about it, and maybe we can finish up with this and we'll see how you feel about this comment, but it's been stewing away in my head now for 10, 15 minutes, the idea of this person getting a wild card. The biggest game of your career, potentially, is the first time you play Nadal. Who knows where this kid's career is going to go? Obviously, they're hoping they've put him on a rocket ship and they're sure as hell trying, but that is going to be something that sticks with him forever. The first time you played one of the best players of all time at a tournament that they normally are dominant at, when in the middle of their comeback, so all the media and the whole world's there, so no one's forgetting about it, you didn't deserve to be there. Someone else should have been on that court.
Mm-hmm.
That kid has to wear that now. Like, he's obviously probably not old enough to be making those sort of decisions for himself. Like, oh yeah, I get a chance to play Nadal? Cool. Amazing. Or he might not even have known that, but to get the wild card to play in a tournament, that's stuck on him now. That's like rust. And he can either get rid of it by having a great career or it's just going to become corrosive.
Yeah.
To his reputation of, this kid, he didn't deserve to be there.
Yeah.
So what's the reaction to that from the bad media and the press and the conversation? Are they going to just put a cap on this kid, push him to the side and not give him the opportunities maybe he does deserve?
Yep.
Just so it doesn't look bad?
Yep. Like
they've set him up to fail in a way, which I don't like either.
Yeah, no, and it comes down to the whole argument as you mentioned there, like, the deserving the spot. That's why they have qualifying draws, for crying out loud.
Yeah.
I've got to come through qualies. I've got to earn my spot. You know what I mean? So you look at how do those other full-time professionals feel that are battling away in qualifying, so they've got to win 2 best-of-3 matches just to get into the event. And not easy matches for the armchair fan out there. Tough matches. Guys are fighting for their life out there. Full-time professionals that have been on tour for 4 or 5 years playing challenges, for crying out loud, building their ranking up to that 80, 90 in the world where they can get into qualifying for the Masters events. And then, and they've been out there doing it at challenger level with not much money in the back pocket. And then the draw comes out and it's like, hang on, the main draws come out. Who's this wild card? This 16-year-old from the United States that gets a wild card when I've been playing 4 or 5 years of challenges and I'm from, let's say I'm South African, for example. You know what I mean? Where's my wild card? I don't get any help at all. You know what I mean? This kid's American, and he's getting a wild card into a Spanish event. Like, makes no sense. What's the connection? It's got to rub some guys the wrong way, surely.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If you're out there trying to make a quid, and you got to do it the hard way. Yet this kind of stuff's still going on in 2024, when that word you used before of deserving your spot. You know what I mean? Earned your spot. Earned, not given, is one of my favourite sayings. Very simple saying, and it's earned, not given. And it stood out, and it needed to be driven forward to create conversation, and that was that's an agenda of the highest order right there. And moving forward, hey, Darwin Blanch quite possibly will be a top 100 player in the world. He's going to get opportunities by from what we've seen, so far. But the whole earned, not given thing, surely it had to rub some of the full-time pros out there, the wrong way. It's disappointing, and it needs to. It's one of those things that it needs to be really cleaned up, in the sport, because the product, all about the product. You said about selling tickets. Nadal, Djokovic, these guys are only going to play for so long. But the sport, there's more players out there that are trying to earn a living than just those guys. Those guys are doing well. And the level below that, where the full-time guys that are playing challenges, even futures events, where there's not much money up for grabs, if you get a chance and you're an armchair fan out there, you get out and you watch those matches, because you'll walk away and you'll go, geez, that was some good tennis. And geez, those guys play hard. You know why they play hard? Because they got no money in the bank. That's why.
Yeah, and they're spending money every day.
And they're spending money every day. They actually don't make as much money as what they spend. But, they're out there playing at that level, and they're professional players, and it all needs to be cleaned up. And don't be surprised when people out there go, look, that was incredible tennis. Wow, why have I never heard of this guy? Yeah, well, that's right. Because the guy's scrapping and they're fighting and they're leaving it all out there because they've got to earn it. You know what I mean? And the whole wild card thing, it's a real issue in the sport, and it's not going to go away, but it needs to be tidied up. Let's put it that way.
Exactly. So my final thoughts on it are that it should be maybe even renamed, but it should be almost like a special way to celebrate only a few people, like an Andy Murray. If he's fit enough to play, he's that important to the history of the sport now, like the continuing success of the sport, but also being a champion of the women's game as much or more than any modern male player that I can think of, as far as publicly trying to elevate the women's game. If they want to give him entrance to a slam out of respect for his place historically, and he is fit enough to play the tournament and it's not going to be a disgrace, I think that's something where an entrance can be used, some kind of special celebration of a person, or a Nadal coming back to play a clay tournament when he doesn't have any ranking points. Well, he's won it 10 times. He probably should get to play.
Yep.
But just wild carding people is just, you're picking racehorses, but there's already fit horses out there that then miss out. We're not lacking for great male players. So to me, it's absolutely ridiculous and out of date, and feels a little clandestine. Yep. So I'll finish up there.
Yeah, I think you make a good point there. I think there may be some, for the sentimental side
special
of the
circumstances.
Game, special circumstances. You could throw in, wild cards, in that scenario. But they're used. The thing is, with the wild card system, Josh, they're used week in, week out at all events around the world. Week in, week out, week in, week out, and especially at the slams where getting given. Because you're given a wild card, you get handed a wild card. There's a lot of prize money now attached to that wild card.
Yep.
A lot of prize money attached to that wild card. So if you don't think there's agendas or there's interesting selections that go on, you're living under a rock. Yep. And we need to get, especially in a sports gambling world now. That's come into global sport over the last probably 5 to 7 years in a really, really big way. You got it. You can't have any cracks that appear at the administration levels of the game, because when you do, people go, this is corrupt. I won't say much more on that. I think I've probably said enough.
Yeah, we're well into the hour plus mark here. So thank you once again, everyone who's listened to the show. If you enjoy the show or you love tennis or hopefully both, please share it with someone that that loves tennis, wants to hear maybe a different perspective on it. Obviously, I'm bringing just the pure fan obsession and perspective. Culphie, no less obsessed with the sport, but also a very accomplished collegiate player, All-American.
Yes.
So you've got the actual chops on and off the court, and is now a professional coach. So you're getting a little bit of everything here, but hopefully also you're going to get a little bit of conspiracy corner or whatever we end up calling that. Let us know what your feelings are also on Wildcards if you have any, and we might cover that in the next episode. So I'm sure there's lots of feelings out there and our perspective, probably a little bit of truth in what everyone thinks about it. Righto, so my name's Josh. Thank you very much, and cheers, Culphman.
See you next week, my man.